Excellency, the Prime Minister of Norway, Ms. Erna Solberg, the Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi ji, the Honorable External Affairs Minister, Srimati Sushma Swaraj ji, ministers, admirals, generals, eminent leaders from around the world, and of course, our most important delegates and participants. Welcome to the 4th edition of the Raisina Dialogue. A special welcome to our online audience. I was told that last year they numbered upwards of 6 million. Thank you for your support and interest. We hope to see this number rise this year as Raisina is being tweeted in Hindi and in Marathi. And on each day, we will have a special Hindi roundup for our audiences. A warm welcome to 600 delegates and speakers who have flown in from 92 countries to be with us in New Delhi. They will engage in 50 hours of debates and discussions. We are particularly delighted to have a very strong contingent of women leaders and voices with us today. Over 40% of all delegates and speakers this year are women, and we must strive to reach parity next year. We are also delighted to welcome 60 delegates from Africa and many more speakers, a continent whose voice must increasingly shape our future. We are determined to strengthen our engagement with Africa, and on the 10th of January, 2 days from now, you will hear of our plans to create this style of a platform in Africa to discuss the most important questions of development and growth. A very warm welcome to the Raisina Young Fellows. They are a very important part of the Raisina Dialogue. This year, we have 48 young leaders from 29 countries representing the best from government, media, business, and civil society. Over half of these fellows are also young women leaders. They will join an ever-expanding network of 1,500 alumni, about 100 of whom have come back to join us in this particular edition. We have also invited 200 students and young thinkers to this platform. There is also a youth delegation from Russia this year. A very warm welcome to this cohort, and we look forward to your views on the world that you will inherit. Our platform seeks to be different. We strive to be an arena where young voices are able to shape the discourses of the future. We would like to welcome you all to these conversations and debates at Raisina. We have curated 80 interactions on most important issues, 41 panel discussions, 7 keynote addresses, 3 fireside conversations, over 25 studio panels, and 9 associated events are sprinkled over the next 2 days. Team Raisina has strived to create an environment that is rich in diversity and talent and conducive for conversations and debates. We seek plurality of opinion, and we accept divergence of views. We are certain that in this diversity lies a common path to discover an elusive consensus. I am sure that the next 2 days will be informative and intense and will certainly result in propositions and partnerships that will help us navigate our dynamic and complex world. Let me again warmly welcome you all to the Raisina Dialogue, and with this, let me invite our first speaker this evening, the ORF Chairperson, Mr. Sunjoy Joshi, to deliver the opening remarks.
A very good evening to all our distinguished guests, Excellency, the Prime Minister of Norway, Ms. Erna Solberg, Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi ji, Honorable Minister of External Affairs, Srimati Sushma Swaraj ji, ministers, admirals, generals, eminent leaders from all over the world. Samir has already welcomed all of you to the 4th Raisina Dialogue, and just feeling the buzz, the energy from all the 1,800 delegates who will be passing through these precincts over the next 3 days, I can assure you that the 4th Raisina Dialogue has actually succeeded in assembling some of the best minds on this planet to have some great conversations about the future of the world and the process of its reorder. Yes, we do live in very perplexing times. There's no doubt about it. Just as the world seemed to be on the verge of getting converted to this new religion called globalization, the challenge to Fukuyama and the prophets of Davos emerged from the least expected quarters. It came not from hostile non-state or proto-state actors like the Al-Qaeda or the ISIS, nor did it come from so-called revisionist powers of the world, but rather it came from within the strongest advocates of the liberal rules-based international order, the most liberal democracies in the world themselves. And that was the paradox. So that is why they say history has many cunning passages, contrived corridors. It may repeat itself, but it never ceases to amaze us by its ability to ambush everybody. So the signs of the old order straining are evident all around us. Norms, in certain cases, are ceding ground to populist impulse. On the security front, we are seeing multiple flashpoints, whether it be East Asia, the Middle East, or even today the heart of Europe itself. Tried and tested institutions no longer seem to be holding their ground. And the problem is, the new propositions are yet to emerge. So when we conceived this edition of the Raisina Dialogue, the question uppermost in the mind was, must shifts in wealth, power, and technology inevitably produce conflict? Or does the 21st century have in it to be different? And so emerged our theme for this Raisina Dialogue, a world reorder. Over the next 3 days, upon this open global platform, we have a global community of experts who will debate and discuss the key questions of our times. Can we assure that the gift of unprecedented peace the world has enjoyed for the last 70 years, can this continue uninterrupted? Can we script a new ethos for a new kind of globalization, one that creates new channels for prosperity and social mobility for the next 6 billion, which is inclusive, which carries everybody along? No, we are at a moment in history where transformational shifts in technology are compelling us to raise that age-old fundamental question once again. What does it mean to be human? And today there is more than a philosophical urgency to finding the answer to that. It is not just about the ethical dilemma being posed by the arrival of artificially intelligent algorithms or autonomous machines. It is about what should be the nature of interactions between the diversity that is humanity. How do we shape progress to create societies in a caring world? To shape progress for an inclusive humanity that lives at peace with itself and in harmony with the one planet that we find ourselves in. So given the theme of this dialogue, it is my honor to introduce to this August gathering our inaugural speaker to flag off the Raisina Dialogue for this year, Her Excellency Ms. Erna Solberg, the Honorable Prime Minister of Norway. Prime Minister, you represent a country deeply rooted in egalitarian ideals, one which believes in a caring society, that believes that the welfare of its citizens will always be its first priority. Prime Minister Solberg has been the leader of the Conservative Party since 2004 and at the helm of affairs in Norway since 2013. And in today's disruptive political climate, she emerges as a vocal proponent of international norms, collective security, and a European system based on shared values and ideals. Since 2016, Madam, you've been co-chairing the UN Secretary General's Advocacy Group for the Sustainable Development Goals, and have persistently in that capacity brought gender to the core of the global development agenda, relentlessly pursuing gender equality in institutional design and agenda setting. In an age of populism, Madam, you stand out as a truly global citizen, advocating global solutions for development, growth, and conflict resolution. We're indeed privileged to have you with us. Madam, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Prime Minister Modi, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Namaste. Prime Minister Modi, thank you for giving me this opportunity to address the Raisina Dialogue. It's a pleasure to be here today. The ties between India and Norway go back hundreds of years. In fact, the first possible evidence we have of links between Norway and India dates back to the year 834, from a Viking ship discovered by accident by a farmer in 1903 in a burial mound in Norway. The bodies of 2 women were found in that ship. Buried with them, the archaeologists found items that were meant to accompany them to the afterlife. They included fine silks and a small Buddha-like figure decorated with 4 golden swastikas. These items may have originated from the Indian subcontinent, although we will never know for sure. In any case, they came to Norway by sea. The oceans were as essential to our Viking ancestors as they are to us today. They are a vital part of my country's history, and they are a vital part of your country's history. It also is a vital part of our common future. As the world population continues to grow, more and more people will depend on the oceans for development and prosperity. By the middle of this century, the world's population is expected to have increased to 10 billion people. This means that we must look to the oceans in order to ensure sufficient food, jobs, energy, and economic growth. But this will only be possible if ocean resources are used and extracted sustainably. We have a stake in building a sustainable blue economy. Prime Minister, as leaders of maritime nations, we both know that we have a special responsibility to protect the oceans as a source for food, health, and livelihoods. Ambitious new initiatives have been launched to develop India's blue economy. Prime Minister Modi has presented a vision of sustainability and growth for all people in the region. One of the goals of my government's ocean strategy is to promote sustainable value creation and employment in ocean-based industries. Our ambition is to facilitate the transfer of expertise and technology across industrial sectors. For instance, Norwegian technology developed for the offshore gas and oil sector is now being used in aquaculture and renewable energy installations like offshore wind. If we are to build a sustainable ocean economy, we must stop the degradation of the world's marine ecosystems. We must improve the health of the oceans. And that's also why I have established a high-level panel for sustainable ocean economy. And as the ocean economy policy body consists of serving leaders of the world, our ambition is to trigger, amplify, and accelerate action to promote ocean protection and productivity. We will encourage action across the board, in policy, in governance, and financially. We need to move towards an integrated ocean management instead of managing ocean sector by sector. This must be based on scientific knowledge and take into account the full range of opportunities and risks. Our goal is to advance a new contract that will both protect the oceans and optimize the value for all people. So, Prime Minister, I look forward to continue our cooperation on this issue. Global ocean management means that we must work together to share both benefits and burdens. And the bilateral ocean dialogue mechanisms we have established today will provide an excellent tool for this purpose. So, why am I talking so much about oceans? Because it's a common good. It interlinks all countries that are coastal all over the world. Just like our climate, the atmosphere, we are dependent on mutual international work to make sure that we can take care of these common goods that we have. That means that we need to work together, all countries of the world, to make sure that we are managing this in the right way. So friends, successful cooperation depends also on a robust, predictable legal and institutional framework in the ocean space. The UN National Convention of the Law of the Sea provides the legal framework for ocean diplomacy. India and Norway share democratic values and emphasis on international norms and laws. And the rule-based international order has served my country, Norway, very well. One concrete example is the settlement of maritime boundary dispute between Norway and Russia in 2010. Our disputed maritime claims were in areas with an abundance of natural resources. So we had both countries' great interest in the development. So achieving an agreement wasn't easy, but it was in our mutual interest, because none of us could use these resources before we had settled the border dispute. The agreement is important for our future blue economy. We commend India for respecting the rules of the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea on the question of disputed maritime areas. And one thing is sure: when large countries respect international law, smaller countries like mine take note of it. The principle that might is right cannot be used as a basis for governing our oceans or anything else for that matter. One area where large and small countries work together under common institutions is the Arctic. Norway is an Arctic nation. Much of our territories lies north of the Arctic Circle. Sea areas account for a large part of this territory. For us, not like you maybe, but for us, the Arctic is not a remote, icy wilderness. For many Norwegians, it's where we live, raise our families, and run our business. As a result of climate change, we are seeing rapid changes and dramatic changes in the Arctic environment. The consequences of climate change are severe, not only for the local communities in the Arctic, but for the planet as a whole. Rising sea levels and altered climate conditions will have a global impact. And the change are happening fast. So fast that researchers are struggling to understand and predict the effects that it will eventually have on ecosystems. No country can acquire the knowledge that is needed alone. International research cooperation is the only way forward. And there are growing evidence that temperature swings in the Arctic are affecting the melting of the snow of the Himalayas and the Indian monsoon. The worrying development in the Arctic show that interconnected nature is one of the global challenges we have. I am therefore pleased that India and Norway have enjoyed close research cooperation on the Arctic and climate change for many years. And India and Norway is among only a few countries in the world that have research activities both on the North Pole and the South Pole. This cooperation is of great value to both of us. The Arctic Council is the most important forum for discussing issues of common interest relating to the Arctic. India is now an observer state, along with several other Asian countries. The Arctic has become an arena for cooperation between Europe, North America, and Asia. It represents us with new opportunities, and we hope to see an even stronger Indian engagement in the work of the Arctic Council in the time ahead. I started by talking about the treasures that were discovered in a Viking burial tomb. They came to Norway by sea, and they were buried with a ship believed to be needed in the afterlife. It's a story that reflects our dependence on oceans. But it also highlights the importance of international trade long before globalization. Global trade has led to the increased prosperity for many. Extreme poverty has been halved. People live longer, and mortality rates are falling. And I'm happy, more girls attend school than ever before. Global political cooperation, global trade, and international law has been crucial to this progress. But we also have to recognize that globalization has not been equally beneficial for all. Many people feel left out by globalization. And this is a very real challenge, felt especially in European and American political life. Exclusion can spur radicalization. It can undermine confidence in international institutions and cooperation. Eventually, it can weaken respect for international law, human rights, even our security architecture. So to counter this, we must secure the future welfare of a rapidly growing population. Our job as leaders is to deliver security, jobs, education, and healthcare. We must deliver results, not just rhetorics, because after sometimes people see that the results is what counts, not the rhetorics. We must ensure that our citizens feel the positive effects of global growth and globalization. And we must deal with the challenges of globalization while at the same time maximize the benefits for our citizens. This requires both protection and reform of fundamental trade norms. We cannot afford to let protectionism, discrimination, and economic rivalry define our future. Norway and India both benefit from rules-based international trade. We stand only to lose if it's undermined. The WTO is essential for Norway and our interaction with the world. I believe rule-based trade is just as important for our partners, because free trade creates winners. Protectionism does not. In order to benefit all, rights, rules, and responsibility must be modernized to fit the current global economy. This is vital if we are to build a world where people's potential, creativity, and hope for the future can be realized through cooperation, exchange of knowledge, and trade. The consequences of inequality affects us all. Global security threats require global responses. Areas of conflict and instability are breeding grounds for violent extremism and international terrorism. Violent extremism, conflict, and instability also leads to humanitarian crisis and violations of human rights. These, in turn, are some of the main drivers both for regular and irregular migration. Terrorism and violent extremism affects us all and are not limited to any single ideology, religion, or belief. In the continued fight against violent extremism, we must apply a whole-of-society approach. We must address the root causes. Security is closely linked with sustainable development. We must boost job and trade creation, build capacity for generating domestic revenue, strengthen public service delivery, and combat corruption. Because corruption fuels inequality, crime, instability, and violence. And in a lot of countries, corruption deprives the possibilities to do something for those who need the most in healthcare and education. We must also ensure women's rights and participation. We know that when women participate in a conflict resolution program, it's more sustainable than if they don't. We know that we have to have a whole base of creating ways for people to participate if you're not going to have a new crisis coming along soon after. It is crucial for development and for the lasting peace and stability. In 2015, the international community agreed on the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. I call this the roadmap to the future we want. It's tough to reach the targets, it's tough to reach the goals, but we all have to move that way and try to reach them. Because we all have a stake in it. The issues concern all of us. And if we succeed in reaching the SDGs, we will have done much to address many of the challenges that we face today, that people around the world feel is leading to insecurity, to threats to their lifestyle, and to create the atmosphere that leads to extremism or protectionism. So we must address those issues and challenges. That includes poverty, inequality, extremism, health issues, and climate change. Since 2016, I have co-chaired the UN Secretary General's group of SDG advocates. The 17 goals makes it very clear in this context that we are all developing countries. The difference now is that some years back we would say, these are developing countries, those are developed. But when we are measuring ourselves to the 17 goals, we are all developing countries. None of us can say we have reached the goals. We all have different issues in our countries that we have to work better on. Norway has frequently been ranked #1 in the Human Development Index, but we still have a lot of work to do to achieve the SDGs. India, of course, has played an important role in shaping the Sustainable Development Goals. The fact that India, with its massive scale, vast resources, is devoting itself to achieving the SDGs will have a global impact. So I greatly appreciate Prime Minister Modi's leadership in this arena. And I'd just like to say we have no time to lose. 2030 is not that far ahead. Sustainable change cannot be achieved overnight. It requires hard work, and we have to work together. Because the effects of not reaching the SDGs is going to affect us all. The effects of climate change, conflict, forced migration, pandemics does not respect any borders, how much you would like to do things with trade or increase your protectionism. If we don't have international organizations that are prepared to act, international corporations that are prepared to act when crisis emerges in one place, the effects will be felt in other places of the world. That's one of the reasons why Norway has tried to work a lot, for example, on the work on pandemics. India and Norway share the goal of solving global challenges in cooperation, rather than trying to do them in isolation. Norway and India share many values, a deep commitment to democracy, and a deep commitment to a rule-based international order. And we do live in times of great change. If you look at the economy, if you look at the world, it has changed the last 50 years in a rapid way. And India will soon become the most populous nation in the world if you're not already there. I mean, not all censuses are good, either in China or in India. So we're not really sure who is the biggest one these days. From Norway's perspective, global trends have been the cause of both our prosperity, but also many of our challenges. Trade conflicts, geopolitical tension, violent extremism, climate change, and instability at the global level directly affects us at home. But so does also the benefits of world trade, the global fight against infectious diseases, and the rule of law. And while we are seeing great changes, there are also some constants. The oceans are still there with their potential to provide wealth and development. To paraphrase the great Mahatma Gandhi, There's still enough for everyone's need, but still enough for everyone's greed. The monsoon winds still blow across the Indian Ocean, as they did in the Viking times. These are troubled times for the current world order, but I always believe that when you have moved forward for some year, you get a step or two back, but you will continue to move forward. Because for all countries of the world, if you are a caretaker of your own national interest, your national interest is a functioning global order, rules-based, open, transparent. So when people claim that we should use more time on national interest, my biggest answer to that is, having a world that works together on solving international issues, the big issues of our time, that's probably the most important national issues we all can try to work on. So it's if you want to put your nation first, make sure that we have a global order that is functioning. Don't believe in short-term policies, believe in the long one. And that is, we are in this world together, and we have to solve the problems of this world together. Thank you.
That was a very strong pitch for collective action, something that the world so desperately needs. May I now invite the Honorable External Affairs Minister of India, Srimati Sushma Swaraj, to deliver the closing remarks and propose a vote of thanks.
Namaskar, and a very good evening. Her Excellency, Erna Solberg, the Honorable Prime Minister of Norway, Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji, ministers and senior officials, members of the diplomatic corps, members of the armed forces, and distinguished delegates. It is my proud privilege to deliver the vote of thanks at the inaugural session of the 4th Raisina Dialogue. I express our heartfelt appreciation to Prime Minister Solberg for an inspiring inaugural address. Friends, the visit of Prime Minister Solberg to India underlines the multifaceted and forward-looking partnership between our two nations. Together, we are working in areas critical to our overall socio-economic development, including hydropower, clean energy, shipbuilding, petroleum-related services, and IT services. We also have a shared interest in the sustainable use of ocean resources for growth of our economies and protection of the maritime environment for future generations. Friends, this year, the theme for the Raisina Dialogue has been designed to focus on innovative solutions and partnerships as a response to the transitions we are witnessing all around us. It is inspired by unique ideas, leaders, and technologies which are triggering major changes in the international system. Madam Prime Minister, your address has provided a valuable perspective on these issues, setting the stage for discussions on innovative solutions to the most pressing challenges of our times. Friends, in the past 4 years, the Raisina Dialogue has grown in stature as well as in profile. This dialogue brings together political leaders, strategic thinkers, businesses, and academics on a common platform to share their vision and propose solutions that will serve us all in the decades ahead. I'm happy to note that this year we have the widest ever spread of participation with over 600 delegates from 93 countries. I would like to thank our Prime Minister Modi ji for joining us in this inaugural session. His presence will provide inspiration and direction to the dialogue as we discuss ideas for peaceful and prosperous common future. I would also like to thank the Observer Research Foundation who have most ably partnered the Ministry of External Affairs in this endeavor. I also welcome and thank all distinguished speakers gathered here from different parts of the world. I'm confident that your deliberations will yield a wealth of fresh ideas and insights to face our common challenges. Last but not the least, an event like this is only as good as its audience. My deep appreciation to all those who will be joining us and witnessing this dialogue, whether at this venue or online. Thank you. Dhanyavad.